Good afternoon, Realm Walkers. My name is Kirk Comet. I am the Realmwright of the Forging the Realm podcast, as well as the author of the Dragon Harvest universe. This is my debut novel, Demon and Witch, and there are many to come. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man villains and ranking them according to most powerful to least powerful, potentially talking about some design aspects as well. And so with that, let's get into it. To start things off, looking through the list of Spider-Man villains made me feel so nostalgic about the comics I used to read as a kid. Still, enjoy a good comic every now and then, but the threads have been rebooted so many times, and you have to kind of just continually hop on and re-hop on the wagon that it gets a little tiring, and so there's a break in there for me. But the Amazing Spider-Man comics, the Spectacular Spider-Man, the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, when Miles Morales first came out, those comics were so much fun. The Superior Spider-Man story arc, a great arc, I thought. Just really enjoyed it. And so getting to look at this list as I prep for this episode was just really sweet. And I'm excited to talk about these guys with you. Let me know in the comments who your favorite Spider-Man villain is, and let's get into it. To start things off, we have the Green Goblin, Norman Osborn's Green Goblin. This is the guy who is Peter's best friend's father. He's a wealthy businessman. He's a corrupt gentleman. He's kind of crazy, especially as the Green Goblin. He's just crazy, crazy. And he is the greatest enemy in Peter's portfolio, I would argue. I think it would be taken as kind of a given in most cases. He's at least the most iconic enemy of Spider-Man's. Uh, I would say that the Green Goblin exceeds expectations. He is scary in terms of his design. He screams crazy, but not crazy incompetent. And it's a nice mixture of the Goblin aspect as well as the wealthy aspect of Norman Osborn coming together to create this character that just wants Peter dead. Kind of wants to see not in a Green Goblin, or sorry, not in a Joker kind of way, but in a still very crazy, like dangerous way. Wants to see the world just blow up. Very very angry and twisted thoughts, but a little more, I think, directed in its why. And so I'm gonna give the Green Goblin a 9 out of 10. I think he's a solid villain. I really do like the way they designed him in the comics to just be scary. Then we have Venom, and I think Venom is going to be a high score too. I'm not really looking so much at Tom Hardy's Venom. I don't dislike those films, but I think that they've made too great an effort to humanize and to make you like something that is actually supposed to be really scary. And as a kid, Venom was scary. He was big and he was strong and he was evil. And even when Spider-Man wore the symbiote suit, like it brought out his darker aspects. It turned him violent in ways that just weren't heroic. And so, Venom is a creature that like kind of haunts Peter, a creature that he's afraid of. I would give him I think I'd give him maybe an 8.5. Maybe not as good as Green Goblin, but really solid design. And I think maybe part of what's so lovable about Spider-Man, not only him, he's a great character, but his villains are top tier most of the time. Which, again, Doc Ock, I would say, falls in line with that. Dr. Octopus, in the series that I've read with him, it's so interesting because they say that the difference between the hero and the villain is not whether bad things happen to you, but the villain says, this bad thing happened to me. I will never let it happen again. And then the hero says, this bad thing happened to me. I will never let this happen to another person. And so, it's a very simple contrast, but I think it works in the case of Doc Ock and Peter Parker because they actually share such strong similarities. They're both nerdy people. They were both bullied in high school. They both actually in several arcs, like if you play the Spider-Man games by, I think it's Insomniac for the PlayStation, Peter works for Doc Ock. And of course, the chip is what begins to corrupt him. Doc Ock is not in and of himself just a nasty guy. But, you see that. And I think that it shows. I think it shows in the story. I think he's a villain that you can still root for and care about because, he's a bad guy, but he's not just a bad guy. And I would give him I feel like I would give him a 9 out of 10. I think he's very, very sweet. Well done. I really did enjoy the live action Doc Ock that we got to see. I can't remember the name of the actor who did that, but with the Tobey Maguire films, that was really cool. I've enjoyed seeing him in the comics and in the video games, and in fact, the Superior Spider-Man arc, which if you don't know, this is a spoiler, feel free to skip it. But in the Superior Spider-Man story arc, Doc Ock is dying. I can't remember if he has cancer or what he has, but he finds a way to swap bodies with Peter Parker, and he becomes Spider-Man. The superior Spider-Man is how he sees himself. He's violent. He uses more technology than Peter does, and in the end, he comes to realize, as you know, he comes to face his enemies, that he is not the superior Spider-Man. Actually, the superior Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and he swaps bodies back with him, even though he knows what it will cost him. So it's really, really fun arc. I think powerful storytelling. Number 4, we have Kraven the Hunter. Kraven's fun. I don't think he's a bad villain. I think he's a good time. I think next to the other ones, he doesn't hold as much of a candle. I think I would give him a 7. He's someone who likes to hunt big game. Peter's literally calling himself Spider-Man, so it kind of makes sense as to how he would end up on this guy's radar and why Kraven would decide to hunt him. Number 5, we have the Lizard. The Lizard is another solid character. It's so interesting to me how many of like Peter's villains are corrupted, which everybody who becomes a villain is corrupted. I don't think like they're just it's just bad all the way through all the time, but the Lizard is another one of those guys who you can kind of root for, but who just ultimately falls prey in a sense to his own monster inside him. I would give him, let's see, what have we got? Doc Ock was 9, Venom was 8.5, Norman Osborn. Am I crazy if I give him? Maybe I'll say an 8.5. We'll be fair. Number 6 is Carnage. Carnage is like Venom in the sense that he's a symbiote, but he's got a lot more of a serial killer aspect to him because he's in what's his name? Something Cassidy. Let's look up Carnage's identity. Carnage Spider-Man. Cletus Cassidy, that's what it is. Yep. And he is a serial killer, and so that's spooky and scary. I think it was fun to fight Carnage in the video games. Like, oh wow, something even scarier than Venom is how it's like set up. Something that Venom and Spider-Man might team together to like take on. I think that's cool, and I think that's fun. I think it works as a story arc. I don't think he's as strong as the other villains in the sense of character development. I think he exists well in light of Venom and Spider-Man's story arc. So I'd give him maybe, what did we give Kraven the Hunter? 7.5. I think I would give Carnage, in terms of, character, 7.5. Then we have, let's do Kingpin. Kingpin is a Daredevil villain, but he's also a Spider-Man villain. I think he really shines through in Daredevil more. I think in Daredevil, we have potentially a 9 as a villain, but I think in Spider-Man is, in a lot of the comics, he's a teenager. In his adult, comics, he's a scientist, but he's not like looking at New York as this corrupt pit, which Daredevil tends to have more of that mindset of like, this is Hell's Kitchen and it's ruined, and but it's also mine and I got to keep it. Spider-Man is much more like, cool, we're going to the lab, and like, yeah, I just want to love on my girlfriend, but all of these things keep getting in the way. And so Kingpin is one of those guys who shows up intermittently, but he's not really like the focus of Spider-Man's life. I think I would give him, in the Spider-Man comics, maybe a 7. He's a lower tier villain in terms of like, oh, I'm excited to see him in these comics, with Spider-Man specifically. If it was Daredevil, again, it could be a different story. Then let's talk about Sandman. People have a thing against Sandman, and it's understandable because there was Spider-Man 3, and that was a little rough. He's always wearing the same green striped shirt. And in a sense, he's really hard to beat which can make him almost like Superman, where it's like, okay, stronger, but not necessarily a stronger character, because he's just sand, like punch through sand. That's a very difficult thing to do. But he's got a conscience, and so there's that realm in which like Spider-Man faces him as a moral person. And in addition to that, I believe there are renditions where he's turned to glass, things like that, to deal with him. Spider-Man's really smart, and in the comics, he finds a way. And so, I would give Sandman maybe an 8, maybe a 7.5. Maybe he's sitting with Kraven the Hunter, but that's okay. That's a pretty good spot to be. Then we have Mysterio. I think the movies, actually, the Tom Holland films, did a good job with Mysterio. I'm pretty happy with that. Um, I think I remember playing games on like the Game Boy and thinking like he was a very good character. He can create illusions that you just can't see through. You think you're fighting things that you're not. I think I would give him an 8.5. And then we'll do for our last pick, although there are so many fun ones. Honorable mentions are things like Chameleon, Vulture, Shocker. There's Electro. Just looking through this list, all fun ones to talk about. Mr. Negative, Hammerhead. They're listing some of the X-Men ones that show up for him, which is fair because he shows up in a lot of different comics. But I feel like to do Spider-Man justice, we got to talk about the Rhino. He's kind of an idiot. He's super strong. He's got a horn on his head. Depending on which version you read, he's either just wearing a rhino suit or I think it's the Ultimate Spider-Man. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I'm talking about the comics here. In the Amazing Spider-Man, you have what I'm about to describe in the movies, but you have a giant like mechanized rhino and a smaller man inside it, which is a fun way to do it too. I think I would give him an 8.5. He is really sweet, really solid, a lot of fun. He's a great way to have like a compelling comic book story that doesn't have to be as heavy, because Spider-Man knows he's not as smart. He can have a little more fun with him, but he's still a threat because if he hits you, you're in trouble. Yeah, I think that's where I would put him. And so top tier, I would still say sit Green Goblin, Doc Ock, maybe the Lizard and the Venom, or Lizard and Venom and Rhino are contenders there as well. But I think those are the top two, for me at least. Who is your favorite Spider-Man villain? Let me know in the comments. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you make sure you subscribe so you can keep in touch with me and with the other Realm Walkers who are on this channel, so that you can keep up to date on what we're talking about fantasy-wise, and so we can just keep plugging in together. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.